Have you ever wondered why some people stay composed even in the middle of chaos while others unravel at the slightest provocation? It's not luck. It's not personality. It's a skill trained, sharpened, and chosen. In today's world, where everything moves fast and emotions flare even faster, calmness has become a superpower most ignore. We live in an age where people think power comes from dominance, speaking louder, pushing harder, reacting faster. But what if true strength is quieter? What if real control isn't about controlling others, but about mastering yourself? Imagine walking into a storm with a clear mind. No fear, no rage, just presence. That's the essence of calm, not the absence of stress, but the refusal to be ruled by it. And once you know how to create that inner stillness, the noise of the world can't touch you. In a world that moves at relentless speed, where reactions are instant and emotions often go unchecked, calmness isn't just a rare trait, it's a revolutionary one. Most people chase power in the form of control, dominance, and force. They raise their voices, they flex their will. But the ones who truly influence the course of their lives, the ones who are respected, not just feared, are those who know how to stay grounded. They respond with clarity instead of reacting from chaos. History remembers warriors, philosophers, and leaders not for their outrage or recklessness, but for their control. Their minds were trained to remain still under fire. The Stoics called it virtue. Zen masters called it presence. Great generals relied on it not to overpower but to outthink. Because they knew something vital: emotional turbulence is weakness. Stillness is strength, and modern science, it's catching up. Neuroscience and psychology now echo what ancient wisdom already knew: a calm mind isn't just peaceful, it's powerful. It sees better, decides better, survives longer. Those who mastered their emotions are not exempt from pressure. They don't float above life. They feel everything: stress, fear, anger, but they've learned to pause, to breathe, to choose their next move rather than be dragged by impulse. And that is the power we'll unpack in this episode. We'll explore how to build this calm not just philosophically, but biologically. From understanding how your nervous system works, to the tools that regulate it in real time. Because your mind is a battlefield bombarded by input, scanning for threats, shaping responses before you even think. For most people, stress is a command. For the trained mind, it's a signal, nothing more. The key lies in understanding your biology. Your nervous system operates in two main modes: the sympathetic fight or flight and the parasympathetic rest and restore. The problem: most people live their whole lives stuck in activation, always bracing, always rushing, never realizing they have the power to switch gears. That's why under pressure, some collapse, others rise. It's not about being born calm, it's about mastering your inner control system. Neuroscientists have found that in moments of stress, your amygdala, the part of the brain that screams danger, takes over. It dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your system, narrowing your vision, spiking your heartbeat, and triggering fear or fury. But when you train your mind to stay still, you engage the prefrontal cortex instead. That's the part of your brain responsible for logic, long-term decisions, and self-control. This isn't just an emotional advantage, it's a cognitive one. Because a calm mind isn't just a quiet mind. It's a sharper mind, able to cut through the noise, to see the truth, to lead from wisdom, not fear. Then be the greatest warriors, the deepest thinkers, the most enduring leaders across time and culture. What did they all have in common? They understood the power of calm. The samurai trained in Futishin, what they called the immovable mind. Even when blades clashed and death loomed close, they practiced staying emotionally centered, unmoved by fear or rage. Their strength wasn't just in the sword, it was in stillness. And MCC Hun, Stoic philosophers like Epictetus taught a radical idea: It's not the events themselves that disturb us. It's our interpretation of those events. Pain, loss, failure, they are neutral. It's our mind that makes them unbearable or manageable. And the Zen monks, they spent decades sitting in silence not as an escape, but as a battleground. Because they knew the fiercest war is the one within. And the most important victory isn't over others, but over your own reaction. Here's the truth: they were not superhuman. They felt stress. They faced fear. But their discipline taught them how to stay grounded in the midst of it. And that's the first step for us too: awareness. Start by noticing. When stress hits, what happens in your body? Does your breath shorten? Does your chest tighten? Do your thoughts start racing into panic or frustration? That moment of recognition, that's your entry point. You cannot control what you do not notice. Step 2 is intervention. You slow your breath. You release the tension in your shoulders. And you tell yourself this powerful truth: very few things are as urgent as they feel. When you pause, you take back control. Step 3, practice, repetition, rewiring. Every hard moment in life is an opportunity to train. Every time you're tested by chaos, you're being given a chance to build calm. Like muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And science backs it all up. Calmness isn't just a nice trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a skill. A trainable skill. The brain can literally be reshaped. The nervous system retrained. Emotional responses reprogrammed. What ancient warriors and philosophers knew instinctively, neuroscience now confirms. The ability to remain composed is one of the highest forms of intelligence. So when life accelerates, slow yourself down. When emotions flare, center yourself. Because power is not found in the force of your reaction, but in the clarity of your response. We live in a world that rewards speed. Snap decisions, instant messages, fast answers. But speed does not equal strength. And reaction does not equal wisdom. Real strength is in the pause. The space you create between emotion and action. Between impulse and intention. That space is everything. The untrained mind is reactive, bouncing from fear to anger, from pressure to panic. But the trained mind is deliberate. It observes, it waits, and when it acts with purpose. That's the difference between those who crack under pressure and those who hold their ground. The ability to pause is not weakness, it is power, refined. It's the self-discipline to hold your tongue when it would be easier to lash out. It's the wisdom to wait a moment before making a decision that could shape your future. MCC Hun. It's the humility to breathe when everything inside you screams to act. Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl once wrote a sentence that changed millions of lives. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Frankl knew suffering beyond comprehension. Yet even in the darkest conditions, he reminded us of one truth: we may not control what happens to us, but we always control how we respond. That's where your power lives. Not in controlling life, but in commanding your mind. Neuroscience has proven this simple truth. When stress hits, the amygdala, the primitive part of your brain wired for survival, immediately takes over. That's the fight or flight system lighting up like a warning flare. It's why people lash out in anger, why we blurt things we regret, why our vision narrows and decisions turn rash under pressure. But here's where everything can change. The moment you pause, even for a breath, even for a heartbeat, you disrupt the loop. You hand control back to the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain designed for logic, long-term planning, and restraint. That small delay, that space between impulse and action, shifts the command center of your mind from chaos to clarity. History's greatest leaders, thinkers, and warriors mastered this art. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, ruler of millions, trained himself to hold back in moments of anger. Not because he was cold, but because he understood an unfiltered reaction is rarely a wise one. The samurai, in the thick of battle, were taught to pause for a single breath before they struck. That pause made their movements precise, calculated, deliberate, not driven by panic. Buddhist monks, men who devoted their entire lives to mastering the mind, learned to watch their emotions like clouds drifting across the sky. They didn't chase them. They didn't fight them. They simply noticed ... and let them pass. But in our modern world, that kind of control is rare. We're pressured to act instantly, to respond fast, to make choices on the fly, texts, emails, breaking news, notifications, everything screams, react now, think later. But the strongest minds resist that noise. They know something most people forget: most mistakes happen in haste. And clarity ... true clarity ... only rises in stillness. So how do you build that stillness? Start with these 3 practices. First, before you react, pause. Just one deep breath. That breath creates space. And in that space, power returns to you. Then second, mentally step back. Imagine you're watching the situation happen to someone else. What advice would you give them? That shift in perspective softens the emotion. Third, ask yourself this question: will this reaction serve me in the long run? Not in the next minute, not in the next hour, but in the scope of your entire life. That one question reframes everything. It takes you from the heat of the moment to the wisdom of the big picture. MCC Hun. As Viktor Frankl said and lived, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. In that choice lies our growth and our freedom. And neuroscience proves he was right. Just a few seconds of intentional pause literally changes your brain's chemistry. It quiets the fear center. It activates the part of your mind built for wisdom, for perspective, for strength. The lesson is timeless and clear. Those who pause before acting don't lose power. They gain it, because real strength doesn't come from speed. It comes from accuracy, not from reacting fast, but from responding well. Let's be honest. Life won't always cooperate with our plans. Difficulties are inevitable. Things will fall apart. Disappointments will come. You can't avoid the storm, but you can train for it. And that's the dividing line between the mentally weak and the mentally strong. It's not about pretending hardship doesn't exist. It's about choosing how you interpret it. The untrained mind sees obstacles as walls, as defeats, as proof they're not good enough. But the trained mind, it sees opportunity. It sees resistance as a chance to grow. Struggle as a sharpening stone. Failure as feedback. This mindset isn't delusional, it's disciplined. The ancient Stoics had a phrase: forte mor fati, the love of fate, than not just acceptance, but transformation. The idea that everything that happens, even the painful things, can be turned into something useful. Take Epictetus. Born into slavery, abused, limited, yet he became one of the most respected philosophers in human history. He didn't curse his fate. He used it as fuel, as training, as forge. He taught that suffering doesn't come from the event itself, but from our judgment of that event. And MCC Hun. Modern psychology confirms this. The practice of cognitive reappraisal, the ability to shift how we interpret what happens to us, has been shown to lower stress, increase resilience, and improve our ability to solve problems. So when life tests you, don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this training me for? Studies have shown something powerful, something that ancient wisdom always knew, but science is just now confirming. But those who learn to reframe negative experiences as opportunities for growth don't just survive. They rise, they bounce back faster, think clearer, perform better under pressure. Why? because it's never the situation that defines the outcome, it's the mindset. History isn't just a record of events, it's a showcase of people who refuse to be broken by hardship. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars, almost 3 decades of confinement. But when he emerged, he didn't seek revenge. He spoke of peace, of unity, of building a better nation. That's what mindset can do. Thomas Edison, the man behind the light bulb, failed over 10,000 times. But when asked about it, he didn't talk about failure. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And Helen Keller, blind and deaf from infancy, didn't withdraw from life. She became a writer, a thinker, a symbol of human resilience. Her life is living proof that limitation is not destiny. These individuals didn't escape struggle. They transformed it. So how do we build this mindset ourselves? How do we take the fire and use it to forge strength? There are 3 core practices. First, change your internal dialogue. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That one question flips your entire experience from victimhood to growth. Second, build the habit of finding the lesson in every challenge. Whether it's patience, humility, resilience, or adaptability, every struggle has something valuable to offer. But you have to train your mind to look for it. Third, and this is key, seek discomfort. Not recklessly, but deliberately. Push yourself. Enter situations that stretch you, whether it's through physical training, difficult conversations, or facing the fears you've long avoided. Why? Because the more often you voluntarily step into challenge, the less threatening adversity becomes. Your brain learns that hardship isn't a signal to retreat, it's a signal to grow. The Stoics believed this deeply. They saw hardship as a teacher, not a curse, and modern psychology agrees. The practice of reframing, what they call cognitive reappraisal, has been proven to lower stress, boost resilience, and enhance decision-making. History makes it clear, the people who make the greatest impact are not the ones who avoid difficulty, they're the ones who use it, who turn the weight into strength, who look at life's pressure and say, "This will shape me, not break me." But here's what keeps most people stuck. They live trapped inside their emotions, reacting without thinking, letting every high pull them up, and every low drag them down. Their mind becomes a puppet, pulled by whatever the moment throws at them. But those who train themselves to detach from emotional impulses begin to understand a life-changing truth. Real power doesn't come from reacting, it comes from observing. They learn that they are not their thoughts. They are not their emotions, they are the one who sees them, who watches, who chooses. This is the art of becoming the observer. The ability to step back, to create space between what happens and what you do about it. To watch emotions move through you like clouds across the sky, present, yes, but not permanent, not defining. Buddhism calls this practice non-attachment, to acknowledge emotions without being enslaved by them. The Stoics called it apatheia, not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be disturbed by it. Both teachings converge on one truth. The moment you realize your emotions don't own you, they lose their power over you. Marcus Aurelius lived this out in the face of empire and chaos. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't suppress his emotions, he studied them. He saw anger, fear, and frustration not as commands but as signals, data, information. And most importantly, not something that required immediate reaction. That's the difference between the untrained mind and the trained mind. The untrained mind reacts automatically, emotionally, often destructively. But the trained mind, it observes, it pauses, and then it responds, not with impulse, but with intention. And once again, modern neuroscience catches up with this ancient insight. Studies show that building this kind of emotional detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Your brain becomes more adaptive. Your decision-making improves. Your stress lowers. Because you're no longer at the mercy of your feelings. You're steering the ship. Studies in mindfulness and emotional regulation continue to uncover a powerful truth. When you observe your emotions instead of obeying them, everything changes. Stress lowers. Clarity sharpens. Then bond your ability to choose your next action rather than be ruled by instinct rises dramatically. Biologically, here's what's happening. When you react impulsively, when you snap in anger or drown in anxiety, it's your amygdala, the brain's emotional command center, that's in charge. It floods your system with stress hormones. Your heart rate spikes. Your vision narrows. You go into survival mode. But if you pause, if you step back, even for just a few seconds, the balance shifts, and MCC Hun. Control returns to the prefrontal cortex, the rational brain. This part is responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and impulse control. That's the science behind a timeless practice. Detachment is not suppression, it's power. So how do you train this ability? How do you build that internal calm, even when everything outside feels chaotic? Here are 3 practices. First, begin by noticing emotions without judgment. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. When you feel anger, frustration, fear, don't act. Don't resist, just name it. This is anger. This is fear. This is anxiety. By labeling it, you create distance. The emotion becomes something you have, not something you are. And with distance comes clarity. Second, train the habit of delayed response. When something triggers you, a text, a tone of voice, a look, force yourself to pause. Even 5 seconds of intentional silence rewires your brain. You teach your system that reaction isn't your master, that you have a choice. Third, remind yourself no emotion is permanent. Joy fades, so does sorrow, so does anger. Every emotion is just whether it passes. And the more you internalize that truth, the less control your feelings will have over your life. Marcus Aurelius lived by this principle. He believed true strength wasn't about bending the world to your will but mastering your own mind. Modern neuroscience proves it. Then when we observe emotions instead of reacting to them, we change the way the brain processes stress. Both Stoic and Buddhist traditions align on this. Detachment is not indifference, it is freedom. Freedom from being hijacked by fear. Freedom from saying things you'll regret. Freedom from being ruled by mood swings. The moment you realize emotions are not commands but passing signals, you reclaim your self-control. But MCC Hun. And in a world where most people live chained to their next reaction, that kind of inner control. It's rare. It's radical. It's powerful. But here's something most people overlook. Your breath is the gateway to that control. Breathing is automatic. You do it every moment of your life, mostly without noticing. But when stress hits, when panic sets in, it's the first thing to shift. Suddenly your breathing becomes shallow, fast, chaotic, and your mind follows. But have you noticed how, in moments of calm, your breath slows, deepens? It's not coincidence, it's connection. The link between breath and mental state is direct and profound. And those who learn to control their breath, learn to control their mind. Throughout history, this connection has been honored by some of the world's most disciplined minds. The samurai trained in breath control to steady their hands and their hearts before combat. Buddhist monks practiced breath awareness to access deeper levels of consciousness. Even the Stoics, though they didn't speak directly of breath, emphasized controlling the body's impulses. And the breath, that's where impulse begins. All of these traditions understood one thing. Control the breath, and you control the nervous system. Control the nervous system, and you control the mind. And now, modern science confirms it. The autonomic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for triggering stress or initiating calm, is directly influenced by how you breathe. Fast, shallow breathing activates stress. Slow, deliberate breathing signals safety, control, and peace. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, start with the breath. Before you speak, before you act, breathe with intention. Because breath isn't just survival, it's strategy. And the one who controls the breath commands the mind. When your breath speeds up, shallow, rapid, uncontrolled, your entire body follows. You activate the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight mode. Heart rate rises, muscles tense, emotions spike. And your mind, it narrows. Focus locks onto the perceived threat, whether it's real or not. But when you slow your breath deep, steady, intentional, you activate something else. The parasympathetic nervous system, the system that calms, that restores, that brings you back to clarity. Stress hormones drop, muscles relax, the fog lifts. This is why, in the heat of a crisis, a single deep breath can feel like a reset. It's not just a moment of pause, it's a biological command: stand down. And here's where discipline becomes power. Box breathing, a method practiced by Navy SEALs under extreme pressure, is one of the most effective techniques for regaining calm. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold again for 4. It sounds simple, but it forces your nervous system into balance. It quiets the chaos and returns control to the mind. Another technique, backed by research from Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman, is called the physiological side. It works like this: take one deep inhale, then a second, shorter inhale stacked on top, followed by a long, slow exhale. Just 1 or 2 rounds of this can drop your stress level dramatically within a minute. These aren't just wellness trends, they're survival tools for a world that constantly pulls you into anxiety, distraction, and reaction. So how do you integrate this into your daily life? First, start by noticing your breath. In moments of stress, awareness is the first weapon. Are you holding your breath? Is it short and fast? Is it leading you into panic? When you notice, take over, slow it, deepen it, own it. Second, build breath control into your routine. Even 5 minutes a day, whether through box breathing, mindful breathing, or guided breathwork, trains your nervous system to stay steady under pressure. So when the storm comes, calm won't be a stranger. It'll be second nature. Third, use the breath as a reset button. When emotions start to overwhelm you, before you speak, before you decide, before you let reaction take the wheel, pause, inhale, hold, exhale. Do it once, twice, 3 times. Because in that simple act, you shift from chaos to control. The samurai knew this. They trained their breath to still their fear before drawing a blade. Not just to survive, but to act with precision. Modern neuroscience now confirms what they instinctively understood. Breath controls the nervous system, and the nervous system governs the mind. Breathing isn't just a function of the body, it's a tool for mental dominance. And when used intentionally, it becomes a bridge between reaction and wisdom. So the next time the world speeds up, when your heart races and your mind floods with emotion, return to your breath. Because in one slow inhale and exhale, you reclaim yourself. But here's a deeper truth few understand. Not every emotional reaction comes from the present moment. Sometimes what you're feeling right now, anger, anxiety, frustration, isn't about now at all. Often, we think we're reacting to this situation, but we're actually reacting to something older. A wound, a memory, a belief we picked up years ago. That's why understanding your triggers is essential for mastering calm. Because true strength doesn't come from feeling nothing. It comes from knowing why you feel something, and choosing how to respond anyway. A trigger is anything that provokes a strong emotional response that seems out of proportion to the moment. Maybe it's a certain tone of voice, a text left unanswered, a comment that hits too close to home. On the surface, it looks small, but your reaction is big. Why? Because your brain doesn't distinguish between past and present, it responds to patterns. If this moment echoes an earlier pain, your mind relives it as if it's happening again. This is why some people erupt at small criticisms, why others shut down in conflict, why we feel overwhelmed even when nothing is objectively wrong. It's not the moment, it's the memory. Psychologists call this emotional conditioning. The brain links past pain to present triggers, causing automatic reactions. But awareness breaks the cycle. When you begin to see your patterns, you gain a new kind of freedom. You're no longer ruled by your emotional history. You start making conscious choices, not conditioned ones. The emotionally weak are ruled by their triggers. They lash out, shut down, spiral. But the emotionally strong, they step back, they observe, and they refuse to be controlled. That's why emotional mastery is never about suppression. It's about recognition. It's about root cause awareness. The Stoics knew this long before psychology gave it a name. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He wasn't saying suffering isn't real. He was pointing to the mind's power to amplify it through interpretation, through memory, through story. And once you understand that, you no longer suffer blindly. You begin to suffer wisely and grow stronger because of it. The fire you feel in a moment of conflict, the panic that rises from a simple email, the storm triggered by a passing comment, these aren't just reactions. They are interpretations, shaped by the past. Buddhist philosophy calls this out clearly. Awareness dissolves reactivity. The moment you observe your emotion instead of being swept away by it, you begin to take your power back. The observer is always stronger than the storm. So, how do you actually break free from the cycle of your triggers? First, identify them. Notice the moments when your reaction feels too big for the situation. Is it a certain tone of voice? A repeated phrase, a type of silence? These are clues. Not to your weakness, but to your history. Second, trace them back. Ask yourself, when have I felt this before? Often, that reaction isn't to what's happening in front of you. It's to something buried, an old wound, a forgotten moment, a belief formed long ago. Once you see the root, the emotional grip begins to loosen. Third, reframe the experience. Stop seeing your trigger as a threat, see it as a training ground. Because every time you stay calm in the face of a trigger, you are rewiring your brain. You're proving to yourself that you are no longer ruled by old patterns. You are building something new, something stronger. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He understood what neuroscience now confirms. Awareness disrupts automatic responses. Observation is the first step to freedom. And until you understand what triggers you, you will always be controlled by forces you don't even see. But the moment you bring those forces into the light, they lose their power, and that is where true mastery begins. Resilience, the ability to stay standing when everything tries to knock you down, isn't built when life is easy. It's forged in discomfort, in setbacks, in failure, in staying steady while the world around you shakes. People who crumble under pressure aren't broken, they're just untrained. But those who train themselves to stay calm in the face of stress, to breathe through difficulty, to hold their ground when everything begs them to panic, those people carry an advantage no one can take away. That's what real resilience is. It's not toughness, not bravado, not pretending you don't feel pain. True resilience is adaptation. It's not about ignoring stress. It's about learning how to carry it without letting it define you. Like a tree that sways in the storm but stays rooted. The strongest minds don't resist pressure. They move with it without breaking. Modern psychology confirms this ancient truth. Studies show that those who build strong coping mechanisms like reframing thoughts, controlling breath, practicing awareness recover faster. They stay clear under fire. They respond instead of unraveling. Why? Because the brain, like a muscle, grows through exposure to controlled stress. This is why the most resilient people in the world are not those who avoid hardship. They're the ones who step into it. Again and again, deliberately, consistently. Not because they enjoy pain, but because they understand the value of training. Ancient warriors and philosophers knew this deeply. Epictetus, born a slave, enduring unimaginable hardship, taught, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgment of them." He didn't just survive difficulty, he used it to forge clarity and strength. The samurai embraced a code known as Shishuetsu, the transcendence of life and death. They trained not just in combat, but in stillness. To meet mortality with grace, to stay composed even in their final moments. Buddhist monks, through rigorous meditation, exposed themselves to discomfort not to escape pain, but to learn how to exist within it. Without resistance. Across centuries, across continents. One lesson echoes again and again. Resilience isn't the absence of pain, it's mastery over pain. And those who build resilience don't run from hardship. They transform it. So how do you do that in your life? First, voluntarily expose yourself to controlled discomfort. Cold showers, difficult workouts, challenging conversations. Put yourself in situations that stretch you just enough. Every rep makes your mind stronger. Second, reframe adversity. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this preparing me for?" When you see challenge as training, suffering transforms into strength. Third, develop recovery rituals. Even the most resilient minds know when to rest. They pause, they reflect, they reset. Because resilience isn't staying tense forever. It's about knowing when to push and when to breathe. Epictetus proved that hardship doesn't define you. Your response to it does. Yes, our response is everything. Science continues to affirm what ancient warriors and philosophers already knew. Exposure to controlled stress doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. And those legendary minds, those who shaped empires and philosophies, understood a universal law. Resilience isn't about avoiding the struggle. It's about meeting it head-on with clarity, with composure, with an unshakable belief that nothing can break you unless you allow it to. That's the lesson history whispers over and over again. You're not fragile. You're not broken. You're simply untrained. And once you adopt the right mindset, once you dedicate yourself to the right practice, you don't just survive, you become unbreakable. Because let's be honest, conflict is inevitable. No matter how calm, how intelligent, or how well-intentioned you are, there will be moments when life tests you, when words are thrown like weapons, when misunderstandings ignite like wildfire, when emotions spiral and logic disappears. And in those moments, most people do one of two things. They attack, letting anger dictate their voice, their posture, their choices. Or they retreat, hoping the storm will pass, avoiding discomfort, suppressing their own voice. But neither reaction leads to resolution, neither leads to peace. Those who master conflict don't avoid it. They don't feed it. They navigate it with calmness, precision, and control. That's where real power lives. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that being calm in conflict is weakness. That staying composed means being passive, but that's a myth. The strongest individuals in history were not the ones who shouted the loudest, not the ones who bullied their way through tension. They were the ones who stayed centered in the storm, who didn't flinch, who responded with wisdom instead of wrath. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, and yet he trained himself to keep his emotions in check during crisis. Nelson Mandela, after 27 years of imprisonment, didn't emerge with vengeance. He emerged with vision. Sun Tzu taught, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. These men didn't suppress their emotions, they mastered them. And science today confirms what history has always shown. Research on emotional intelligence reveals this clearly. People who manage their emotions during conflict not only achieve better outcomes, they build stronger relationships, they lead more effectively. They're remembered not for their volume, but for their wisdom. Here's why. When emotions take the wheel, logic takes a backseat. The amygdala, your brain's emotional alarm system, hijacks your thinking. You say things you don't mean. You misread intentions. You escalate what could have been resolved. But when you stay calm, when you anchor yourself, you keep the prefrontal cortex online. That's the part of your brain responsible for reason, for foresight, for measured action. So how do you master conflict through calm? First, train yourself to pause before you respond. Don't speak right away. Take a breath. Let the wave of emotion pass. That single breath can mean the difference between destroying trust or building it. Second, ask questions instead of launching accusations. Instead of, you're wrong, try, can you help me understand what you mean? This small shift lowers defenses. It turns a confrontation into a conversation. Third, control your tone and body language. People don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. A steady voice, an open posture, an unshaken gaze, these communicate calm authority. They make people feel safe, even in disagreement. Marcus Aurelius led his people with restraint, not rage. He knew that the strength of a ruler wasn't in the sword but in the discipline of the mind. Modern neuroscience backs this up. When you manage emotion, you make better decisions. You stay strategic. You lead from your values, not your volatility. And history's greatest leaders, they didn't win through brute force. They won through the mastery of communication. So here's the truth. Power isn't in how loudly you speak. It's in how deeply you listen, how skillfully you respond, and how unshaken you remain when pressure rises. That's real strength. That's what it means to lead yourself and others through the fire without being burned. Calm is not submission. It is dominance over yourself. Not over others, not over life, over you. Here's the truth no one wants to face. Control is an illusion. Most people spend their lives gripping tightly, trying to shape every outcome, predict every variable, and force circumstances to match their expectations. They believe that with enough planning, enough effort, enough vigilance they can bend the world to their will. But this pursuit of control, it's what leads to anxiety, to tension, to the deep, soul-draining frustration of realizing that no matter how hard you try, you can't control what was never yours to hold. The strongest minds, the truly uncheckable ones, aren't those who control everything. They're the ones who've mastered the art of letting go. This isn't passive resignation. This is strategic surrender. It's the wisdom to know the difference between what's yours to shape and what must be released. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, a timeless principle. Some things are in your power: your thoughts, your actions, your responses. Most things are not: other people's behavior, the weather, the past, or an unexpected loss. To fight what you cannot change is to wage a war you'll never win. But to release it, to shift your energy toward what you can influence, that's where true peace begins. And it's not just philosophy. Science confirms it. Studies on anxiety and stress show that people who focus their attention on what they can control while accepting what they cannot experience lower levels of stress, improved emotional regulation, and greater life satisfaction. The human brain is wired to seek certainty. But here's the paradox: certainty is an illusion. The more you chase it, the more power it has over you. But the more you embrace uncertainty, the more peace becomes possible. Great minds throughout time knew this. Bruce Lee said it best: be water, my friend. Water doesn't resist obstacles. It flows around them. It doesn't panic when the past shifts, it adapts. Lao Tzu, the father of Taoism, taught that those who force control suffer, while those who flow with life find peace. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, reminded himself daily that external events were out of his hands. But his mindset, his response that was always his own to command. They all knew, trying to control the uncontrollable only leads to suffering. So how do you apply this in your own life? First, identify what's truly within your control. When you face a challenge, ask, can I influence this? If yes, act with intention. If no, release it with grace. Second, trust your adaptability. You don't need to control everything. You only need to know that you can handle anything. Third, watch for signs of attachment to control. Anxiety, frustration, impatience. These are your signals. Your internal flags that you're trying to grip something that was never yours to hold. And the moment you loosen that grip, peace begins. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire not by controlling the world, but by mastering his mind. Neuroscience now echoes this ancient wisdom. Letting go of control reduces stress, increases clarity, strengthens resilience. Philosophers, warriors, masters of the mind, they've all taught the same lesson. Life will never be predictable, but your response to it always can be. Strength isn't in controlling everything, it's in knowing what to release. Because the more you let go, the freer you become. But here's a deeper truth. Calm isn't something you reach for only when life collapses. It's not a parachute for emergencies. It's not a trick you use once you're already drowning. No, calm is a way of life, a daily discipline, a mindset you build before the storm ever comes. Most people live in constant reactivity, pinging from one task to the next, from one distraction to another. Their focus, hijacked. Their emotions, scattered. Their peace, missing. And they only search for calm once they're already in chaos. But the strongest minds, those who lead themselves with grace, they don't wait for peace. They train for it, just like a warrior doesn't wait for battle to sharpen his sword. Those who live with clarity and composure don't wait for stress to practice stillness. They build it into their routine, into their mindset, into their identity. And science backs this too. Studies on mindfulness and emotional regulation prove that individuals who engage in daily calming practices, breath work, meditation, even moments of stillness, experience lower baseline stress, clearer decision-making, and more emotional resilience. Your nervous system learns how to return to calm faster. Your mind learns how to find its center sooner. Your body becomes conditioned not to panic but to pause. In other words, the more you practice calm, the more you become it, and the ancients understood this too. The Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They mentally rehearsed hardship in advance so that when life delivered difficulty, they were already steady, already centered. Because peace isn't found in the absence of storms, it's found in the practice of staying still within them. The samurai did not wait for war to learn composure. They meditated before battle, training their minds to remain still even in the face of death. For them, calm was not weakness, it was readiness, presence, power. Buddhist monks don't see stillness as something separate from daily life. They weave mindfulness into every moment, eating, walking, breathing, so that calm becomes not a ritual, but a rhythm. These were not occasional efforts, they were disciplines practiced daily, repeated until they became who they were. So how do you build calm as your way of life? Start small, start consistent. First, create daily rituals of stillness. It could be 3 minutes of silence in the morning, or 5 slow breaths before bed. These quiet moments teach your mind to choose presence over distraction, steadiness over stimulation. Second, train yourself to pause before reacting. Make it a habit. Before you speak, before you send that message, before you let emotion take over, pause. A single breath can rewrite the outcome of any situation. Third, live by this truth. External chaos doesn't require internal chaos. No matter how fast the world spins, you are allowed to move at your own pace. That is not rebellion. That is power. The Stoics, the samurai, the great minds of history, they all lived by this principle. Calm is not a destination. It is a daily decision. Modern neuroscience confirms it. Training the mind in stillness doesn't just make peace possible. It makes resilience automatic. Their lesson is clear. If you want to be uncheckable when the storm hits, do not wait for the storm. Train daily. Make calm your default. And when the pressure comes, you'll already know how to stand. But here's something deeper. Calm doesn't exist in isolation. It ripples. Like a still pond, its presence spreads through rooms, relationships, families, and communities. The energy of one steady mind can change the emotional temperature of an entire space. Just as one person's chaos can ignite more chaos, one person's calm can anchor everything around them. That's why cultivating calm is not just a personal act, it's a form of service. Most people underestimate the impact their internal state has on the world around them. When someone is anxious, their energy unsettles others. When someone is reactive, their emotions fuel more reactivity. But when someone remains composed, they become a center point. This is why the most respected leaders, the most grounded mentors, the most admired friends, aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who bring steadiness into every room. They don't absorb chaos, they transform it. And science supports this. Studies on emotional contagion show that human beings unconsciously mirror the nervous systems of those around them. When someone projects calm, it regulates others. This is why a steady leader can de-escalate a crisis. Why a calm parent can settle a fearful child. Why a thoughtful mentor can turn frustration into clarity. It's not magic. It's biology. People feel what you carry whether you intend to share it or not. History gives us examples. Mahatma Gandhi led a revolution not with weapons, but with unwavering presence. The Stoics, like Seneca, believed that a tranquil mind could shape not only the self but entire societies. Even on battlefields, the samurai understood that their emotional state impacted outcomes. That the warrior who remained unshaken could shift the tide through presence alone. They did not cultivate calm just for personal mastery. They used it as a force to reshape their world. So how do you bring that into your own life? First, become aware of the energy you bring. Before you speak, before you react, pause and ask, am I adding to the chaos or bringing clarity? Second, practice being the calmest person in the room. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means leading them, rather than letting them lead you. Third, remember, your calm is not just for you. It's for your family, your team, your community. Even strangers passing by, when you train yourself to remain steady, you become a safe place in a restless world. Seneca said, tranquility within creates harmony without. And today, neuroscience, psychology, and ancient wisdom all agree. Stillness isn't passive, it's a superpower. And calmness, when cultivated with intention, can move more than mountains. It can move people. It can change lives. Thank you for walking this journey with us through clarity, through conflict, through control, and finally into calm. If this message brought you stillness, if it helped you reconnect with your strength, share it, live it, become it. And don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Zen for more wisdom, more clarity, and more daily discipline to guide your mind no matter what life throws your way. Neuroscience confirms what ancient wisdom has long known. Calmness spreads just as quickly, just as powerfully as anxiety. It radiates. One composed individual can anchor a team. One grounded voice can ease a tense room. One steady heart can shift the energy of an entire environment. Leaders, warriors, philosophers. Across time, across culture, across crisis. They've all shown us the same truth. True strength is not just personal, it is shared. And their message is simple, timeless, and clear. When you cultivate calm, you don't just change yourself. You change everything around you. In a world that rushes, that reacts, that constantly craves control and comfort, the greatest gift you can offer isn't noise, it's stillness. And in that stillness, another power emerges, one that's deeply misunderstood in our impatient culture. Patience. Most people see patience as weakness, as inaction, as doing nothing. But in truth, patience is one of the greatest forces you can cultivate. Patience is the ability to remain centered in uncertainty, to continue moving even when results don't come, to resist the urge for immediate gratification, and wait for what matters. It's not passive, it's powerful. Because those who master patience, master time itself. The average person is ruled by urgency. They want answers now, progress today, transformation without delay. But that urgency often backfires. It leads to half-finished goals, rushed decisions, abandoned dreams. They quit on relationships that needed time. They give up on ideas that needed nurturing. They walk away just before the breakthrough. But those who embrace patience, they know that anything of true value, wisdom, mastery, depth, requires time, requires waiting, requires faith. They don't fear slow progress, because they understand. Growth is measured in years, not moments. And once again, science confirms it. The famous Stanford marshmallow experiment revealed a powerful insight. Children who delayed gratification, who waited for a greater reward rather than grabbing the immediate one, went on to achieve higher success, emotional stability, and long-term fulfillment. Patience isn't just a virtue. It's a skill, a predictor of greatness. Throughout history, the wisest minds understood this. Lao Tzu said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." The Stoics taught that time reveals what effort alone cannot, that we must trust the unfolding of things. Even Sun Tzu, the great military strategist, taught that victory doesn't always go to the strongest or fastest, but to the one who waits for the right moment to strike. None of these legends saw patience as weakness. They saw it as the highest form of discipline. So how do you develop patience in your life? First, learn to sit with discomfort. When things feel slow, frustrating, uncertain, don't escape, don't lash out. Don't rush the process, observe the feeling. Breathe into it, watch it, without acting on it. Second, adopt the long-term view. Ask yourself, will this still matter in 5 years? Am I judging too soon? Most people quit because they never give the process enough time to reveal its worth. Third, trust the unseen work. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean it's not happening. Like roots growing beneath the surface, true growth begins where no one can see. Lao Tzu knew this. Patience moves mountains. Neuroscience proves it. Those who delay gratification perform better, live deeper, lead longer. And history's greatest minds, they show us that strength isn't in rushing, it's in trusting the process. Their lesson is final and firm. The impatient are ruled by time, the patient rule over it. When you learn to wait without frustration, to persist without needing immediate rewards, you unlock a rare and powerful advantage. The ability to outlast, to endure, to win through stillness. And in a world that moves faster every day, that demands instant everything, that rewards reaction over reflection, there is one thing more valuable than ever: presence. Because most people, they're here, but they're not really here. They're physically present, but mentally somewhere else. Their attention fractured by thoughts of the past, by worries about the future, by endless digital noise that never stops. They move through life without experiencing it. Their bodies sit still but their minds race. Their hearts drift through timelines that aren't real. And true life slips past them in quiet moments they never notice. But those who train in presence, who learn to be fully here, they understand the greatest truth of all. Life does not exist in the past. It does not exist in the future. It only ever exists in this moment. It exists only in this moment. And those who can fully inhabit the now, not just skim the surface of it, gain an advantage few ever realize. Presence is not just about sharpening your focus. It's about deepening your experience. It's about showing up fully with your work, your relationships, your surroundings, with yourself. Presence means living with clarity rather than coasting on autopilot. When you are truly present, conversations gain depth. Experiences gain texture, decisions gain precision. You stop reacting from habit and instead begin responding with purpose. Neuroscience supports what ancient traditions have taught for centuries. Studies on mindfulness show that those who train their minds to remain present have lower stress, stronger memory, and greater emotional resilience. Why? Because the brain functions better when it's not constantly switching channels between past regrets and future fears. When your attention returns to now, your mind calms, your choices sharpen, and your life becomes something you can finally feel again. This isn't just theory, it's lived truth. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps Rome's greatest philosopher-emperor, reminded himself daily. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. He knew that this moment, not tomorrow, not someday, is the only moment that truly belongs to us. Zen masters found the sacred in the simple. Breathing, walking, drinking tea. Not because those acts were dramatic, but because when done with full attention, even the smallest moment becomes infinite. And the most powerful figures throughout history, leaders, artists, warriors, succeeded not just through brilliance, but through their ability to be fully present in the moment that mattered most. So how can you build this in your own life? First, practice single tasking. Give one thing your full attention. One conversation, one page, one breath. Second, become aware of your thoughts. Notice when they drift to worrying or regret, and gently bring them back to the now. This isn't about control, it's about return. Third, create rituals of mindfulness. Pause before you speak, taste your food. Feel the ground under your feet as you walk. These small acts teach your mind to anchor, to stay, to engage. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly: confine yourself to the present. Neuroscience confirms that presence reduces stress and amplifies clarity. Zen reminds us, peace isn't found by escaping life, it's found by fully experiencing it. And their shared wisdom echoes loudest here. Distraction dulls the mind, but presence sharpens it. The greatest advantage you'll ever develop isn't in doing more. It's in being here, engaged, alive. Because life is not waiting for you in the future. It's not stored in a someday that might never come. Life is happening now. And the more present you are, the more deeply you will live it. But here's one final truth. Stillness is not idleness. It is not stagnation. It is not the absence of action. Stillness is awareness. It is creating space for clarity. It is the decision to step outside the noise long enough to see what actually matters. In a world that glorifies busyness, movement, noise, stillness has become a lost art. And yet, those who master it, who know how to sit in silence without fear, who can pause in the middle of chaos and listen inwardly, they gain a vantage point that others will never access. Most people avoid stillness because they fear what they might find. They associate silence with emptiness, with falling behind, with being forgotten. So they fill every gap scrolling, switching, seeking, always jumping to the next task, always chasing. But in that constant chase, they lose their depth, their ability to think, to reflect, to know themselves. And that is the greatest loss of all. So if there is one message that remains, one final truth to take with you from this entire journey, let it be this: stillness is strength, presence is power, calm is not a weakness to be fixed, it is a force to be cultivated. And when you master these not in theory, but in daily, deliberate practice, you become someone who can move through the world with grace, with focus, with resilience. You become someone who doesn't just survive. You lead, you influence, you transform. Thank you for walking this path with us through discipline, awareness, patience, presence, and peace. If this message stirred something in you, share it. Live it. Become it. And don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Zen for more timeless wisdom, more clarity, and more mental training to carry you through anything. Until next time, stay sharp, stay steady, and above all, stay true to who you're becoming. They are always reacting, never reflecting, always consuming, never processing, always moving, but never truly seeing. And yet, the greatest minds throughout history knew better. Socrates believed that wisdom wasn't found in having all the answers, but in creating the space to ask better questions. The Stoics, like Seneca, practiced moments of stillness daily, because they knew that a noisy mind cannot see clearly. Only in quiet does truth reveal itself undistorted. The samurai trained themselves to sit in complete stillness, not as a form of passivity, but as a way to master their impulses, to dominate the battlefield from the inside out. Even great scientists, strategists, and artists have all spoken of this necessity. Stillness not as a pause from thought, but as a gateway to deeper insight. And today, neuroscience confirms what these traditions practiced. When the brain is not bombarded with input, when it is at rest, it enters a state of deep processing. This is where creativity rises, where complex problems unravel, where memories consolidate. This is why moments of inspiration rarely strike while we're frantically working. They come in stillness, while walking, while showering, while sitting quietly just being. In other words, the mind needs space to think. Without it, clarity is impossible. So how do you build that space in your modern life? First, carve out moments of silence. Even just a few minutes without noise, without screens, without interruptions. Let your nervous system breathe. Second, embrace doing nothing. Not as laziness, but as a sacred pause. Let your mind surface thoughts it has no time to process during busyness. This is why so many of history's greatest minds took long walks, stared out windows, sat in reflection. Third, resist the urge to fill every gap. If you find yourself with a quiet moment, don't immediately reach for your phone. Let the silence stay. Let the stillness deepen. Observe what arises when the noise fades. Seneca taught that stillness sharpens the mind. Neuroscience proves that the brain functions at its highest level in silence. And the great warriors, leaders, and thinkers, they all knew the truth. Clarity does not come from more noise. It comes from learning to be still, to wait, to listen, to see. Their lesson is clear. When the world speeds up, slow down. When your mind races, let it rest. Because in stillness, you don't lose time. You gain understanding, and in that understanding, you arrive at another overlooked virtue: acceptance. Most people think acceptance means giving up, that it's passive, weak, defeated, but that couldn't be further from the truth. True acceptance is an act of power. It's the ability to see reality clearly, without illusion, without denial, without wasting energy wishing it were different. It's the strength to embrace what cannot be changed, and the wisdom to act boldly on what can. Those who master acceptance do not become victims of life's uncertainties. They become uncheckable. But most people, they fight reality. They resist what is. Clinging to what was, or what they think should be, they waste energy trying to change others. Rewrite the past, control the uncontrollable. But here's the hard truth. The storm doesn't stop because you protest it. Time doesn't reverse because you regret it. People don't change because you want them to. And the more you resist, the more you suffer. But the moment you accept, you set yourself free. The Stoics knew this intimately. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from focusing only on what is within your control. Your thoughts, your actions, your mindset, and releasing your grip on anything beyond that. That's not surrender, that's sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every day that he had no control over external events, only over one thing, his response. And that simple reminder shaped an empire. It also shaped a philosophy, one echoed in Buddhism, which teaches, suffering is not in the event itself. It is in our resistance to it. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means letting go of illusion. It means seeing clearly, so you can act effectively. Modern psychology now echoes what the ancients practiced. In cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a method called radical acceptance. It shows that those who learn to embrace reality rather than fight it experience lower stress, greater emotional resilience, better mental health. Why? Because when you stop pouring your energy into what cannot be changed, you redirect it toward what can. And that is where transformation begins. So how do you cultivate this? First, notice when you're resisting. If you feel frustration, tension, anger, ask yourself, am I fighting something I can't control? Second, shift your focus to action. If something can be changed, act. If not, release it. Third, remind yourself, peace does not come from perfect circumstances. It comes from a trained mind, one that remains steady regardless of what changes. Epictetus knew that suffering is born not from events, but from our judgment of them. Neuroscience proves that acceptance rewires the brain, reducing stress, increasing resilience. The greatest thinkers, warriors, and leaders of history all understood one truth: acceptance is not weakness. It is clarity, it is strength, it is freedom. It's the refusal to waste energy on illusion, the discipline to see life as it is, and the wisdom to act only where action is possible. Their lesson is final and clear. What you accept no longer controls you. And in that freedom, true power is found. Now, we arrive at the final virtue on this journey: gratitude, often dismissed as soft, seen as a gentle feeling, a passive appreciation of the pleasant. But the truth, gratitude is a mental discipline, a daily practice, a radical shift in how you see the world. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's not about denying pain. It's about training your mind to see strength where others see scarcity. It's about choosing to see what's here, rather than obsessing over what's missing. And those who live this way gain more than happiness. They gain peace that cannot be shaken. Most people live in silent dissatisfaction, always measuring life by what they lack, focused on what went wrong, what they didn't get, what they could have had. They chase one goal, then the next, and no matter how much they accomplish, it never feels like enough. Why? Because the human mind, if left untrained, defaults to comparison, to craving, to focusing on the flaws. But those who master gratitude break this cycle, not by rejecting ambition, but by grounding themselves in what is already present. And again, science agrees. Studies show that those who practice gratitude daily have lower stress, greater mental resilience, and stronger emotional health. Because the brain, when trained to focus on what is good, naturally suppresses negative thought loops. Gratitude rewires your mind. It teaches you to see abundance, not scarcity, to notice stability, not fear, to feel strength, not deficiency. This is why those who live with gratitude are not just happier. They are stronger. They do not need perfect conditions to find peace. They do not rely on external validation to feel whole. Because they've learned that what they have is already enough to begin again, to stand steady, to keep going. So here, at the end of this journey, is the final truth. Stillness brings clarity, acceptance brings freedom, gratitude brings strength, and when you practice these, not occasionally, but daily, not when life is easy, but especially when it's hard, you stop reacting, you start responding. You stop fighting reality, you start moving with it. You stop looking for peace out there, because you've built it within, and that changes everything. Thank you for walking this journey with us through calmness, resilience, patience, stillness, acceptance, and finally, gratitude. If this message spoke to you, share it, live it, return to it, and don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Zen for more timeless wisdom to help you build a mind that endures, that sees clearly, feels deeply, and walks steadily, no matter the storm. Until next time, stay grounded. Stay grateful. Stay true to who you're becoming. They create that peace from within, and the greatest minds in history understood this on a profound level. The Stoics, like Seneca, encouraged a daily gratitude practice not just as a polite habit, but as a spiritual training, a way to remind oneself of life's hidden fortunes. Even Marcus Aurelius, ruling the vast Roman Empire, regularly reflected in his meditations on the simplest of blessings: a sunrise, the breath in his lungs, the wisdom left behind by those who came before him. In Buddhist philosophy, we learn this. Suffering is not born from lack, but from attachment to what we think we need. Gratitude, then, is not about good fortune. It's about clear vision. It's not a reaction. It's a perspective. A chosen way of seeing the world. So how do you build that perspective? First, begin each day by identifying what you already have. Not just things, but lessons. Experiences, connections, even the wounds that made you wiser. Second, when facing adversity, shift the question from why is this happening to me to what is this teaching me? Third, express gratitude through action, not just words. Use what you've been given: your time, your talent, your strength, to contribute, to create, to serve. Because gratitude, when it's real, doesn't just see the gift, it uses it. Seneca believed gratitude was a source of strength. Neuroscience confirms that it rewires the brain for resilience and contentment. It calms the nervous system. It lowers stress. It improves mood and mental focus. And the timeless lesson remains. True peace doesn't come from having more. It comes from fully appreciating what's already here. So here's the truth. If you can't be grateful now, you won't be later, because gratitude isn't about circumstances. It's about vision and discipline. And when you train your mind to see clearly, you realize something beautiful. Peace was never something you had to chase. It was something you had to notice. It was always within you. But now we come to perhaps the most misunderstood form of strength: vulnerability. Most people hear the word and think of fragility, of weakness. But in reality, vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It is its foundation. True strength is not about being untouchable. It's not about emotional armor. It's not about pretending to have it all together. It's about the courage to feel, to reveal, to stay open even when it hurts. Because those who are willing to be seen fully, honestly, are not fragile. They are fearless. But here's what most people do instead. They build walls, hide behind masks, suppress what they feel, because they believe that revealing struggle will make them appear weak. But this avoidance does not build strength. It builds isolation. And over time, that guarded way of living, it leads to shallow relationships, to unprocessed emotion, to a quiet kind of suffering that never quite leaves. True resilience isn't about pushing emotions away. It's about facing them and learning to move forward with them, not in spite of them. Psychology backs this up. Studies on emotional resilience show that those who embrace vulnerability, who acknowledge what they feel, experience lower stress, deeper connections, and greater well-being, because emotions don't disappear when you deny them. They just go underground and shape your behavior from the shadows. But when you name them, feel them, own them, they lose their power to control you. And in their place, you gain something uncheckable: self-trust. Throughout time, the greatest minds have taught this lesson. Lao Tzu said, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest." The Stoics, though famed for discipline and logic, emphasized self-awareness, not suppressing emotion, but mastering it, understanding its roots, choosing how to respond, not pretending it isn't there. Even the samurai, warriors of steel and silence, embraced the philosophy of kintsugi, the art of mending broken pottery with gold, honoring the cracks rather than hiding them. They believed that what is broken, when mended with care, becomes even more beautiful. These traditions didn't view vulnerability as a flaw. They saw it as part of wholeness. So how do you cultivate this kind of strength? First, give yourself permission to feel. You are human. Emotion is not a mistake. It's a message. Second, share honestly, not with everyone, but with those who've earned your trust. Let them see the truth, not just the mask. Third, reframe vulnerability as courage, because it is. It takes far more strength to be real than to pretend. The final truth is this: gratitude grounds you. Vulnerability connects you. And together, they unlock a power that cannot be shaken. Not the power to control the world, but the power to walk through it, open, present, alive. First, allow yourself to truly acknowledge discomfort. When fear rises, when sadness whispers, when doubt creeps in, don't push it away. Don't numb it. Don't pretend it's not there. Observe it, name it. Sit with it like an old friend who has something to teach you. Let it move through you, instead of letting it rule you. Second, share honestly with those you trust. Strength isn't found in isolation. It's not in building walls so high that no one sees inside. Real strength is in knowing when to reach for another hand. Not to be saved, but to stand together. To lean without losing yourself. Third, reframe your understanding of vulnerability. Stop seeing it as something to hide, and start recognizing it as a tool, a bridge, a key that opens connection, growth, understanding, healing. Lao Tzu said, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest." It wasn't poetry, it was truth. Neuroscience proves it now. Those who embrace emotion, who allow themselves to feel, to reveal, to open, they're not weaker, they're stronger, more resilient, more grounded, more real. The greatest philosophers, warriors, thinkers, they all showed us the same truth. Power is not found in shutting the world out. It's found in standing within it fully, openly, courageously. Their lesson is clear. The mind that resists emotion becomes rigid and breakable. But the mind that allows itself to feel, to stay open, to be human, that mind is indestructible. And now, one last truth. Most people, they drift from one obligation to the next, from one task to another, reacting more than living, existing instead of choosing. They follow routines they never questioned, chase goals that were never truly their own, measure success by what others admire, not by what they feel inside. But those who live with purpose, with intention, they move differently. They are not pulled in every direction by distractions or expectations. They walk their own path, not because it's easy, but because it's theirs. Living with intention isn't about having every detail mapped out. It's not perfection, it's alignment. It's knowing what matters to you and ensuring your energy flows in that direction, moment by moment, choice by choice, because every action, no matter how small, is a vote. A vote for the person you are becoming. So here's the question: Are your daily choices leading you toward the life you want, or are they simply habits of convenience? Science confirms this. Psychological research on intrinsic motivation and goal setting shows that when people align their actions with their core values, they feel more fulfilled, less stressed, more clear, more alive. When your actions are intentional, driven by purpose, not impulse, you develop a rare kind of inner strength. You no longer feel lost. Because even if the path isn't fully visible, you know which direction you're walking. History's greatest minds knew this deeply. Aristotle believed that the highest form of life is one lived with purpose, where each action is guided by a higher aim, a deeper reason, a meaningful why. These are things you must cultivate within yourself. So as you step back into your day, remember this: the power to respond rather than react, to embrace rather than resist, to live with purpose rather than distraction. It has always been in your hands. The question is not whether you are capable. The question is whether you are willing. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, discovered through unimaginable suffering that those who had a sense of meaning could endure even the darkest of conditions, not because the pain was less, but because purpose lit the path through it. The Stoics, like Epictetus, taught the same: that when your life is guided by clarity of purpose, distractions lose their grip, noise fades, and what matters remains. Across cultures, across time, across hardship and history, the message is always the same: without purpose, life controls you. With purpose, you control life. So how do you begin living with intention? First, define what truly matters to you. Not what others expect, not what society rewards, but what resonates with your soul. Second, align your daily actions with your values. Ask yourself, is how I'm spending my time moving me toward what I care about, or pulling me away? Third, eliminate the unnecessary. Let go of obligations that don't serve your vision. The more you subtract, the more you can focus. And in that focus you find power. Aristotle said that purpose elevates life. Science shows that intentional living leads to greater happiness, health, and fulfillment. And history, it shows that the people who left the deepest marks on this world weren't the busiest. They were the ones who did what mattered. So remember, you don't need permission to live with purpose. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need certainty. You only need to decide right now that your life will be shaped by intention, not by accident. Because life will always pull you in different directions. Expectations, distractions, the noise of everything outside of you. Most people move through it asleep, reacting, not choosing. Rushing, not living. But not you. You've taken the first step. You've trained your mind to slow down, to see, to breathe, to feel, to choose. You've learned that strength doesn't come from force. It comes from clarity, from knowing when to act, and when to let go, when to move, and when to be still. True strength isn't about resistance. It's about flowing with life, adapting without breaking, remaining centered, even when the world spins. Every great mind, every warrior, every leader of wisdom understood this. Your mind is either your greatest weapon or your greatest obstacle. And the difference is how you train it, how you shape it, how you show up. Because no one can give you peace. No one can hand you discipline. No one can install clarity into your life. These are gifts you give yourself. So as you step forward into your day, remember this: the power to respond rather than react, to embrace rather than resist, to live with purpose rather than distraction. It has always been in your hands. The question has never been, are you capable? The question is, are you willing?